one that I personally am most excited about is growing more than 50% annually. So if you look across the IT industry, it's no more about just IT services and BPM. Yes, they play a critical role, but we are beginning to see India emerge as a hub for R&D. We are beginning to see a strong, thriving startup ecosystem. And I think if you look at it holistically, it's a very, very robust industry that's playing out. Trends that define the year, I think 2018 was really about digital acceleration. If you look at digital revenues, you will see that it was around 30% growth year over year. And today, if you look at the companies, digital revenue contributes roughly to around 24% of the overall revenue. So that number is significantly increasing. The other big conversation piece in 2018 was about skills. Skills is becoming a key challenge for the industry. There's a lot of talk, and media has debated this issue out pretty thoroughly in terms of what will be the impact of new technologies. Is it going to displace people? Is it going to 170,000 new jobs. So it was apart from the investment in skilling. So pretty much at that stage. Growth drivers for IT BPM, industrialization of digital and large digitization deals is seen as number one. Not a surprise. Digital transformation is happening, and this is where the revenue is. Growth in mature verticals like fintech was becoming a huge priority, as well as the lesser penetrated markets. So there was a lot of interest beyond just US and UK, which has been the focus for the IT industry in opening up new markets. Next, we talked about the focus segments for digital capabilities. Investments in products and platforms is, of course, very important, continues to stay very important. Interestingly, co-innovating with startups is becoming more and more important. In fact, Wipro, TCS, WNS are all companies that are working, Infosys working with startups. TCS alone, it works with around 2,500 plus startups, right? So that is again becoming extremely important and building the right talent pool, as I said earlier. Key risks that can hinder growth of the IT industry. I think the big one really is increased protectionist policies and lack of digital skills. These are the two things that are worrying us the most. How do we read all the different political rhetoric that's going on around the world? What does this mean for the industry? What will this mean for migration of skilled talent? So I think all of this is becoming a key challenge to predict, and definitely one that is tremendously worrying the CEOs. And the second one, not a surprise, is the availability of the right skills. So in summary, again, I would, when we read the surveys and we read the qualitative feedback that the CEOs have given us, I think it matches the feeling that NASSCOM has, that we are cautiously optimistic about 2019. We see opportunities, especially in digital transformation that's happening around the world. We expect that to continue, but at this stage it is extremely it's not just difficult, it's impossible to predict what will happen with a lot of the political rhetoric that we are seeing, and that's definitely going to be a game changer. So from a NASSCOM perspective, and I'll end with this, for us, focus is on what we can control and not what we cannot control. What we can control is building the innovation pipeline in India, building the innovation culture in India. What we can control is building the talent in India so we can address the talent crisis that the industry is facing. What we can control is grow new opportunities for this industry beyond the mature markets and go and form those partnerships with newer countries. And that's really the focus for us. That's what we are going to be working on. And for those of you who were there this morning, I talked about the NASSCOM vision, the NASSCOM goal. We strongly believe that India has a huge opportunity at this stage to get in the forefront of this transformation by focusing on innovation and talent. And if we are able to do that, if we are able to become the hub for digital talent and digital innovation, then when the world thinks digital, they will think India. So that's the goal. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. Yes.
Debjani, thanks for outlining the review.
Right, that was of course about the NASSCOM press conference, and we'll go back, once we see any sort of movement as far as what the guidance. Okay, I think we can go back to the press conference where they are taking questions. Let's listen in.
Industry has actually performed at 9.2, which is higher. In fact, I remember when we started last year, we were talking about how if we come in the mid-range, it's actually going to be good given the uncertainties that we saw. So what worked this year? What seemed to be, because we saw interesting trends of large deals coming in. So what seemed to have worked that led to that? And now what's ahead?
I think, look, we talked about this last year as well, and I think it's not only about the fact that there's uncertainty and so we don't want to share the guidance, right? The view is that the guidance gets taken very much from the lens of an IT BPM services standpoint. Even if you look at the data on the first slide where we talk about the 9.2, 50% of those companies are IT services companies. The other contributors are the GCC, the ER&D companies, right? So we're trying to change this perception of who we as NASSCOM represent and what that guidance also represents, right? So that's point number one. Two, I think we just think it's a better representation of sharing what 100 CEOs, which is a combination of all different stakeholders of NASSCOM, which would be some IT services companies, the GCCs, the R&D companies, etc., think on next year, and trying to sort of collate that into a number to us makes less and less sense. But sharing a perspective of what they believe next year will look like is going to be something we're going to move towards, and we've, I think, principally moved in that direction. The other is also looking at new statistics that may become relevant, and Debjani shared a slide of other things that we're thinking about that are becoming more and more relevant to different stakeholders. Amount of work done by bots, digital revenue, growth of those kinds of areas in the overall numbers. I think those are also going to be more important as we move forward. So philosophically, we're not going to comment on a specific number, but I think, the fact that you have this year's number and you have commentary on what people think of next year and what next year will look like, I think people can come to their own deductions of what that then means for the industry holistically and what it means for the IT services industry in particular as well.